Good evening and welcome to Ask the Unicorn. I'm Ahura Z.
And I'm Charlie Alejandro.
And we'll be answering lots of questions today. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend and a great Christmas and all that good stuff. Happy New Year, beef jerky, all that good stuff. So, how about we go ahead and go right into the questions?
Sure. It says if a person isn't able to see ghosts but sometimes think they see something out of the corner of their eye, is there actually something there? Can that be developed?
There isn't always something there. You have to remember that as human beings we have very active minds, and sometimes based upon the conditions of your life you may think that you saw something, but you may have just caught a trick of the light. And I don't mean to discount anything that you may have thought that you saw. I'm merely opening up the options for you so that you can see that there are many possibilities. Not everything is a paranormal event, so to speak. However, there are times when there actually is something there and it slips in between dimensions and you just catch a glimpse of it. Now, true, you can develop this if you try to develop your periphery. Now, in some forms of training, and even in police work, you're taught to develop your periphery so that your periphery becomes the same as your frontal vision.
Right.
So you might think about doing some eye exercises or some intuitive exercises, and then when you do see something, try not so much to question yourself, but question the event. So that's one way to develop yourself.
What do you mean by question the event?
Well, a lot of times a person will question themselves, which leads to a confidence breakdown.
True.
Okay, so they will tell themselves, well, I really don't see anything. When they did actually see something, but because of their environment or their societal upbringings or even their environs, they may tell themselves, well, I thought I saw it, I'm not sure, and then someone says, oh, you're just imagining things. So what they'll do is they'll question themselves rather than to say, well, what exactly was that? And try to find out, do some investigation.
Okay.
Really stand there and see if that happens more than once. Did a car pass by and there was a reflection on the window? Or any of those things should be investigated before you jump into the paranormal. But don't question yourself, question the event.
That makes sense. Another question says, what are some exercises that can be done to develop this?
Okay. I think I just did say that.
That's what happens when you have a show with a psychic. Sorry, ladies and guys.
Okay, so just do some things like, for instance, I gave the oldest trick in the book, which is to see if you can guess the suits of cards. Maybe see if you can put down a whole bunch of different cards of different colors, make them up yourself, and see if you can guess where they are if they're turned over. You might go outside just to feel your environment, feel what's going on. You can also, like I said, practice bringing your periphery to the front so that everything is the same. Now you can do this with sound as well. I gave an exercise where you sit outside, meditate, and instead of trying to dissect sounds and empty your mind, make everything a part of your environment, okay? And then blend it all into one sound so that it's no longer distracting. Simple things like that. One of the most simple ones, though, is to follow your first thought. You'll find that your first thought is usually the correct thought. And there are people that will say, well, how do I hear my first thought? It's usually the one that tells you when you're about to do something dumb. Okay, that you don't want to listen to.
Yeah.
When you're about to say something, or when you're about to eat something, or when you're about to drink something that you know better than to eat or drink. I'm not saying anything. But it's usually that thought. The really quiet one. What is it we like to say in philosophic circles? The still quiet voice. It's that one.
Yeah.
But if you can train it to be louder, or at least train yourself to pay attention to it, that's one way. Remember, listen, in all realms of spirituality, mysticism, paranormality, what else? Metaphysics, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, even in basic psychiatry and psychology, listen, common sense is the best form of mysticism. Do you understand? It's the one that says, don't stick your finger in that thing. You're going to be hurt. And then you go, oh, it will never happen to me. But you pretend like this voice says, don't stick your finger in that. Because you don't want to hear that. You want to hear, I like bungee jumping with one foot. No. Listen to that one that is trying to put some common sense into your head.
So when you talk about this, okay, like the person asked if they see something out of the corner of their eye, and then you're talking about exercising whether you can guess the cards. So is there some relation with developing your psychic ability to be able to quote unquote see things that are there, like energy or ghost or spirits?
Remember, vision is vision. No matter if it's physical, mental, spiritual, it's still vision. And you have the opportunity to develop your vision just like you would any other muscle. Okay?
That makes sense.
So there's a correlation. You know, if you start getting the cards correct, and you know, as children, we're kind of tricked into this. There used to be this child's game, and it's still around, it's called concentration.
Right.
Okay, well, they call it concentration. And what it really is an exercise in intuitive ability.
Right.
Okay, not only are you using your memory, you're using your physical memory, you're also using an intuitive memory. You know, something that you may not be able to put your finger on, but is actually there. So you remember, okay, there's a king here, now I'm supposed to guess where the other king is. And you call it guessing.
Right.
But then you do, and then there's this one person, there's always this one person. I was pretty good at it. But if you're a telepath, that's cheating. So I've heard. But there's one girl, and her name was Amy Hirayama, I think. And she could just snap these things up. And you look at her, and you go, and I would wonder if she was psychic or telepathic or like me. And she's just really smart, you know. But remember, smart equals intuitive. Okay, because she would just snap them up, and you know, you always have this one hotshot person, you know, that like me that could just play concentration or any other game, and people go, God, how do you do that?
Right.
And then there's this arch nemesis that you meet up with that says, you go, I'll be able to beat anyone at this game, and then she goes whip whip, and you go,
what happened?
Okay, you were not supposed to do that. You know, so anyone can develop this. All you have to do is practice at it. No matter how talented you are, the basic rule is practice, practice, practice. So you can use almost anything. See if you can guess, you know, if the person says, okay, what color am I thinking? And you know, when they do that, it's kind of stupid. But okay. If you have them write the color down and don't even show you, and you're concentrating on what that person may have written, you can look at, or what it is you think that color is. If you find the spectrum, you developed your vision to such a point that you can actually see the energy around the color, you can, in combination with that and what that person is projecting, guess the color. Now, it may not work every single time. In fact, it may work none of the time at first. But you get better and better and better, just like anything else.
Right.
So it's not as though the universe did not provide billions of ways for you to develop your intuition. You just have to pick one or two or three and then stick with them.
That makes a lot of sense. The next question says, does the person have power over you because they know/use your name? Does it matter if you give someone a made-up name so they don't know your real one?
Well, let's see. Let's see. No. Listen, nobody has power over you. The only power that someone has over you is what you give them. Okay? And this is the truth. Now, there are people who understand certain things about vibrational frequency, and they are able to influence you for a time. Eventually, because it is not your voice that is influencing yourself unless they've convinced you that it is, you will break out of that particular thing. Now, again, I have to point this out. I know that we watch a lot of movies because we're just that type of a culture. We love to be entertained by one thing or another. But the truth be told, when you're talking about does a person have power over you, that means that you have absolutely no say-so or no rule, no nothing. And that's ridiculous. It's absurd. Whatever choice you make or whatever thing that you choose to do is based upon a choice that you have made, or else you have allowed someone else to make for you. Now, if they know your name, they can sit there and do it all day. You know, like, let's see, Morgan Freeman. Or, let me think. Angela Bassett, yeah. I'm sorry. I can sit and talk about this woman all day, and guess what? It will not influence her one single bit. Mm-hmm. Okay? Not one. Now then, there's other people like Charlie. Okay, if I'm thinking about Charlie, you know, and then she'll call and say, I was just thinking about you. I said, well, duh.
Get out of my head.
You know, and there are other people like that, but no one has power over you. Please remember that. No one has power over you except for what you give them. If you don't want someone to have power over you, then make the decision not to give them power over you.
Mm-hmm. So it's a conscious decision to
always,
do that.
Always.
Now you were talking about vibrational frequencies. What exactly is that?
A vibrational frequency is the frequency or the wavelengths and how many times a wavelength happens in any given sound or color. Or light for that matter. Now when a person knows your name, they may call you by that name, and depending upon how they call you by the name may evoke something on the inside of you. You know, it doesn't mean that they have control or power over you, it merely means that they have learned your vibration.
Kind of like when your parents call you and they use your whole full name in a certain tone, it just makes the hair.
Or some other name.
And your hairs on the back of your neck just stand up and you know you better get home quick.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Kind of like that.
That makes a lot of
sense.
sense.
You know, like let's say that there's one of my favorite little girls' name is Anna or Adriana. Mm-hmm. And I've heard her mom say her name and she'll go Anna or she'll go Adriana! And rarely does she do that. Now, there's the other one who is also my favorite. I'm sorry, I have a lot of favorites. You people have to understand me. There's no such thing as one favorite with me. Mm-hmm. Well, I've heard her say the full name. Name is Bella, but this is what I will hear. Mm-hmm. Annabella Risbera! And I'm like, okay, who's that? You know? And I'm sorry if I said someone's name I shouldn't have said. I'm kind of irreverent. Mm-hmm. But I've heard the whole name be pronounced. Mm-hmm. And that usually means, uh-oh.
Someone's in trouble.
Somebody's in trouble. But it's all one word. Do you understand? Now, for anyone else to do that, that child will look at them and say, who are you to call me that?
Right.
Do you understand?
Those are fighting words.
Yeah. You know how things happen. Like, I tell most people, just call me Z. Mm-hmm. Okay? My full name is Ahura Zakur Deliza. Okay? However, listening to people say that, whoa. So I just tell them, just call me Z. You know? Yeah. And they'll go, oh, Z as in Z-E-E? No, Z as in Zeta. Z. You know, because it's easier.
It is easier.
And when they do that, it puts them at ease.
Right.
You know, because I don't want to listen to people go, arr, you know, or anything like that.
Or what's your name again?
Yeah, you know, kind of like you. I know you as Charlie. And that's how I call you.
Yep.
You know, other people may know you as something else, and they're allowed to call you that. I, however, just know you as Charlie.
Right.
Okay? And, you know, your vibration matters. If someone says your name badly, it's kind of like listening to someone grinding their fingers on the
chalkboard. That is so true, because to this day, like, Charlie's always been my name. You know, because my mother couldn't properly pronounce my real name, so it became Charlie, because that's what everybody heard. And to this day, if I hear someone call me by the name that it was supposed to be, it is like fingernails, because I'm like, that's not my name.
Because it's messing with the vibration.
Exactly.
And even then, that particular vibration may be private to certain people. Mm-hmm. Well, in vibrational frequency, your name has numbers, as I've said before. Mm-hmm. Equates to numbers, and those numbers will equate to a sound. Okay? Each letter in your name equates to a sound. Mm-hmm. Okay? In some forms of vibrational frequency, all of the sounds of your name, your complete name to be spoken, will sound more like elemental sounds, or like the wind, or like the earth, or like fire, or water, or electricity, or many other elements. And all of a sudden, you would have something that no one would understand. Okay? From that can be formed a phonetic brand, or in other words, something that a person could audibly say, but 9 times out of 10, that vibrational frequency is broken down based upon your birth date, the time of your birth, what conditions there were, your heartbeat, the way that you walk, etc., etc., etc. Okay, you would break this person down into basic elemental sounds that could come up sounding exactly different from what it is that other people call you, and what it is you thought that you know. Now, that takes a lot of work. Based upon that, if you properly placed speakers at different strategic points, based upon numbers again, you could cause that person to lift off of the floor.
Really?
Well, of course.
Wow.
You could also heal just about anything with that person. Because remember, you're recreating a person in their perfect sound. And if you recreate them in their perfect sound, you will cause the sound that has the malady, or the sound that is afflicted, with something that is not harmonic with the rest of them, to be pushed out.
Right.
Remember, everything is comprised of light, sound, and mass, or energy. No matter what it is. To extract either one of them would cause that thing to die. Likewise, to, create the perfection of those sounds would cause anything that is dying to live.
Wow. That makes...
Okay,
yeah.
I just heard. Well, how do you know that? Okay. I know this. Okay. Now, granted, I don't have a huge scientific facility in which I would be able to prove this, but if I did, I'd astonish you all. Yes.
Although I have actually read, I forget what hospital, one university did a study on the positive effects of certain sounds. Just like when you play classical music for
That
a
is
plant,
correct.
it thrives, and that's a living thing. As
That is
opposed to
absolutely
if you
correct.
play negative, screaming type of noises, the plant dies. So there is some basis in so-called science for that as well.
Yeah, but even that particular science is not based in science, it's based in art.
Right.
But, science loves to take credit for things it knows nothing about. But for that, to get back to the vibrational frequency can be used to do just about anything, even to power something. Remember, everything has sound, no matter what it is, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you have sound. And that is a key component in the basic structure and makeup of all things. Sound can be generated, and sound can generate. Okay? Wind generates sound, but sound generates wind. Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sounding kind of...
No, it is. It's an interesting concept.
Yes. I love
Our
that
next
particular
question, I like this one. It says, if somehow you manage to clone yourself, will the soul be similar or entirely different? I know every soul is supposed to be different, but how does that explain identical twins and their similar personalities?
Well, you're talking about cloning versus identical twins. Identical twins are a natural process. To clone something is an unnatural process. Do you understand? You can only mimic something that already is. You can't clone it, or you can't totally reproduce it. Remember, if there's something that has a soul, that soul is original. Whether that soul be joined between two different people, we like to call identical twins identical. They're not. They're not absolutely identical. They may be 99.9% identical, but that 1% is the one that defines whether or not there is one or two souls. You're talking about personalities, how someone acts. That can be emulated by just about anything. It's kind of like saying, okay, well, there's one electricity that runs currently throughout this whole world, and we've split it into two different types of things: direct current and alternating current. Now, many things can be run off of that one source, which is why you're looking at me right now. Okay? So it's kind of the difference. There are different types of things that have different personalities. Even those twins, they're not identical. We like to use things like identical because we're kind of dopey that way. We instead of going through every single particle of something, we like to just look at it and say, it's a bat. And just because it was dark and you thought it was a bat, it may have just been a starling or something else, but it flew erratically, so you called it a bat. So it comes down to this. A soul is a soul. Whether that soul be not split, but whether it has 2 extensions or even 4 extensions, there's always something that is a little different. There may be one aspect of this particular soul that, when it's joined with this soul, creates something totally different. But there's always more than just one. Cloning is a duplicate. And you may duplicate every single thing except for the soul. Even if you were to take that soul from one being and put it into an identical clone of another being, because you took it and put it into an identical clone, it will change something. Because now that soul has to adapt to a new environment. So, that's just the way that it is.
It says here, going back to the previous question, if you find the opposite sound, will the thing disappear?
You mean the reverse sound, not opposite. An opposite will only create something else. You need to, if you're talking about decreation, you would need to reverse that which has been created, which is a task. Many people like myself can speak backwards, but even speaking backwards doesn't decreate something. It merely reverses it to a degree. Remember, once something has been created, it continuously grows. But what you can do is cause a paradoxical effect. And that would be quite difficult, depending upon whether or not something belonged. If something belonged somewhere, you can't really decreate it, can you? But if it doesn't belong, and there's an irregularity, there probably could be a reversal. But remember, it's reversal, not opposite. Okay? Because remember, both are created. If you do an opposite, it's merely the direct opposite of that which has already been created. Okay? For instance, there's white, there's black. Those are opposites, direct opposites. But why are they opposites? Because one is devoid and the other is full. Do you understand? But to put them together would cause something entirely different, not decreate them. You would have to reverse the process in order for that to happen.
Gotcha.
Which is why what you would have to do is cause an obliteration. For instance, in vibration frequency, we create the perfect vibration over a certain time and so many, and then introduce it into the person so that whatever is unnatural there gets kicked out. And usually a malady is a mutation and therefore unnatural. So it can be kicked out. Although the process can be quite arduous and needs to be paid attention to constantly, just to make sure that there's no irregularity even in the vibration frequency. It has to be a constant thing over a certain amount of time. Then you could extract, okay, whatever, or banish whatever is causing the malady, and then it will dissipate. It would have to.
Right. That makes sense. This other question is interesting. It kind of goes back to one of the prior questions. If you have that bad of a physical reaction to your name, i.e. nails down the chalkboard, could it make you insane because it doesn't match your BF?
Probably. It could. But if you're human, you're already there. It could cause some bad reactions, yes. It could even color your life. And if you decide to change it, you have to change it very, very carefully. Don't just pick a name. You may jump out of the frying pan into the fire. So think about what it is that you're doing. It's going to change that vibration. I think one of the most tragic things is when a person does not like their name. Because if they don't like their name, then they're not going to do very well. And if that name was pushed on them because someone decided they were going to pay homage to somebody else, instead of giving them the opportunity to grow into it, even as a nickname or as a middle name, it can cause a very bad reaction. It just really can. It can even cause a person to be sick.
Why do you think people have such a conflict when it comes to changing their name? Like they think it's disloyal, or because I know a lot of people that just absolutely hate their names. But when you mention, well, why don't you change it? Oh no, because my mom gave it to me, my dad gave it to me. Or...
Obligation.
Right.
And sometimes the obligation, the way they look at it is good. Don't get me wrong and make it sound like I'm not trying to make it sound like the names you've been given are foul and ugly and bad. I'm just saying it should come up to the individual. If they want to change their name, fine, but don't go living with something that you hate, and then when a person calls you, you hate yourself.
You get all angry before they even say anything.
Stop saying that. But it's not your name. Yeah. God.
Just don't say it that way.
Yeah.
What do you mean don't say it that way?
Correctly. Don't do that. Just a person should really think about what they want to call themselves at some point in time. Now, I know that parents like to make their 40-something-year-old offspring seem like little children. Mm-hmm. Okay, but they're not, and you're not. So perhaps you should think about what you want to be called if you don't like your name.
Right.
It's okay. Nobody will get you in trouble. I won't tell. Anybody. It's just my secret and yours.
And the registries when you get your new license. This question says, back to souls. When two people get married, do their souls merge?
They blend. Mm-hmm. It's an agreement. Remember that. It's always an agreement. They mesh and then they meld. And hopefully something new is created.
Is that where they get?
But not all marriages are like that. Sometimes when people get married, it becomes a battle, or it becomes an imprisonment, or it becomes something else. Not all souls merge. Marriage is an institution that was brought on by men who decided that they wanted to control something. Remember that? That wasn't God. Mm-hmm. However, if you have a beautiful marriage, wonderful. I'm all for it. If you don't, it's kind of like not wanting to change your name that you hate out of obligation. True, you may have made a decision to be married, but contrary to popular belief, you will not go to hell if you can't handle it.
Now, going back to that with the souls merging, and you say that they do get intertwined. Is that where that comes from? Where people say that the longer you've been married, the more you start looking like each other?
No, this personality is that's something else. You can hang out with a lot of people and start acting like some. That doesn't mean that you've merged in any way, shape, or form. It merely means that you've learned each other.
So you pick up each other's traits.
Oh, definitely. Not only that, when people like to use marriage kind of as a billy club, seriously, I'm your wife, I'm your husband. Oh, that's great. Wear this, or it means you don't love me. And ask my wife how many times I dress like her, and ask her what I think of it. I don't even like dressing like my friends.
Yeah.
If one of my friends comes in wearing what I'm wearing, I will change. It's like this. You can't decide that just because you've used that word, married, that means your souls have been twined. No, they haven't. One of you is probably strangling the other. You guys strangling each other.
That doesn't sound so romantic.
But there are some cases in which, the marriage works and everything is beautiful. Two people having children doesn't mean that their souls merge. It means other parts merge. And the natural thing happened.
Right.
And there's some beautiful children in this world. Mm-hmm. Beautiful children in this world. And, I consider myself one of them.
Tell us how you really feel.
But all in all, marriage is a decision. Mm-hmm. If you meet with someone who is compatible with your own frequency, there's a very good chance that the two of you will merge. Mm-hmm. However, please do not believe that crap that someone put out. Opposites attract. No, they don't. Mm-mm. As a matter of fact, more times than not, they will repel. There has to be something that is similar between the two of you.
Right. That's true.
Okay, there must be something there that is compatible.
Going back to the identical twins, it says, are identical twins one soul split between two bodies or something else?
I think I answered that. Identical twins are two different souls. Mm-hmm. They may be very similar, do you understand? And resonate very, very similar because they're born like one out of the other, which basically means that they've shared part of the same cellular structure. But even on the inside, That cellular structure splits.
Right.
They each have their own soul. They have another type of a connection. Usually they call it a psychic connection because that's the best word they can think
Right.
of. But it's usually an etheric and even an astral connection. Definitely not a physical connection, and therefore definitely not a soul connection, other than their connection to the greatest soul, like all of us share.
Okay. This is another one. It says, how do I break transfer spells that people are sending me because they're trying to get rid of their physical ailment and are trying to use me as a scapegoat? Also, how do I protect the outside of our apartment from people who are putting hexes on it that signal others to hex it as well?
What you have to do is find a way to shield yourself. Don't invite things into your home that are going to be harmful. If a person is going through a healing process, I understand that some of us are just very, very beautiful and we want to help the world. But you have to be careful. Evil cannot enter your home unless you've allowed it in some way, shape, or form. You've got to find that form and then get rid of it. As far as the hexes and things like that go, perhaps it would help you to put your own symbol on your door. And your own symbol, because it is your door, will be far more powerful than another hex.
So let's break that up a little bit. Now, you said you can't invite, evil can't come into your home unless you invite it. How do you know when something is evil to not invite it? If it's just like a regular person that has evil intents, it doesn't show them.
Usually the reaction is almost immediate. Things will sour. You're having this beautiful day and all of a sudden something soured. And it means that something entered that should not have.
How do you figure that out? Let's say you're having like a party or a cookout and there's a few people in your home at the same time and something like that happens.
Unfortunately, social events put people into a very vulnerable position. We like to socialize and we're social beings. However, it would be far better if you took the time to know who it is that you were inviting into your home. If you say, I'm just having a few close friends, and then someone decides that they're going to bring this other person that they wanted to date, that's incorrect. It's improper. You don't do that. If someone was having a party, and a friend of mine wanted to go to that party and they wanted to take me, I said, I don't know anybody there. I'm not going. But that's me.
Right.
You have to learn to garner yourself, and then pay attention to who's coming in your home. It's really simple. I just said that. I said that way back there. The first rule of spirituality is common sense, reality. Just show some common sense. I don't know who that person is. Why are you bringing them to my home?
Right.
Well, it's my friend. Well, great. You and your friend go have a good time. Somewhere else.
Now, going to the other part of that, when you said to put up your own symbol, your own. Well, what is that? How do you do that?
It's real simple. It can be anything. It could be a wind chime. Wind chimes are actually quite mystical. They break up negativity. They also become a warning when negativity is approaching. They'll also just keep people from coming on. Remember, you're dealing with vibrations again, and when a vibration changes, supposedly, if you do it right, your wind chime will ring or make a sound.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Unfortunately, most of us have desensitized ourselves to such things. I have not. I hear the wind chime or, ring irregularly, and I'm up and I look and see what's going on. And it would really do everyone good to pay attention. Maybe I should put everyone through spiritual boot camp.
Yeah, that would definitely help.
And, if you start paying attention to things and stop being so social, it doesn't do you any good anyway. If you have a reason to be social, I understand that. But if you don't have a reason, they'll go, I'm going to this party because my friend's mom's so-and-so would feel bad if I didn't. I don't care.
What if you're in a career like something like our career paths where we have to be social and you have to go to different
Like I said,
events?
if you have a reason to be social. If that's part of your business, fine. If it's part of what it is you're trying to create, fine. But even then, don't be dumb. Don't go, let's all go dancing and leave our drinks unattended and then come back and drink them.
That's a big no-no, even if you're not talking about metaphysics. That's just a safety concern, especially for young women.
Oh,
you never
definitely.
do that, ever.
Definitely.
Or take an open drink or a drink, period, from someone you don't know.
Yeah, come on. A drink from a stranger, seriously? Mm-hmm. Seriously? Hey, sweetheart, let me buy you a beer. You look better than a new set of snow tires. Seriously? Okay. Watch yourselves.
Right.
That doesn't mean be paranoid. It means watch yourselves. I mean, there are thousands of women out looking for men and thousands of men out looking for women. And you guys put yourselves in jeopardy, such jeopardy. I met this guy. He's really, dude, you just met him. What do you know? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I just met him, well, he was a little angry today, but I think he's going through something. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's all I got to say about it.
Right.
And you people that I'm saying this about, you know who you are. Okay?
This question is interesting because this has happened to me. What does seeing a childhood pet that has passed on in a dream represent, in this case, a dog? Because that happens to me a lot. I dream about this one particular dog that I had.
It means there's a part of you that you have not let go of. You haven't let go of.
In that particular pet or in general?
Not necessarily the pet. The pet is merely a representation, unless it is the actual ghost of that pet or the spirit of that pet. It's merely a representation of a part of you. Mm-hmm. You may have been at your happiest when that pet was around. Mm-hmm. Or you may have been going through something else. Now, this brings about an interesting point, because you can use that to play dot to dot. Okay? You see this particular pet,
right,
and you're going through a time that is very similar to how you were when you had that pet or saw that pet.
Oh wow, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah.
And then you can use that energy to navigate your way through life. What does this remind you of? Oh, that time that I was at Disneyland, I had a really good time.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps you need to remember that in order to bring joy into your life, and to use that to emulate that joy. Likewise, oh my God, I saw this and it reminded me of that time that I blah, 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 blah. Great. Use that to skip around it. Whatever you're doing at that particular moment, stop it and go somewhere else.
That is really a great bit of advice, because you wouldn't have thought of that.
No, no one does.
No, you don't. You just think it's like, oh, I missed the dog that I had 20, 30 years ago. You don't think of it in any other way.
Most people don't like listening to the bump in the night, or the, the thing that just, oh my God, I smell roses. And then you remember someone that smells like roses, that was very, very close to you, and you felt so wonderful when that person was around.
Right.
But then they go, is that a good thing? Obviously.
Oh my God.
I mean, really,
yeah,
obviously.
It's true.
I mean, if you have that pleasant thing and, you're just sitting there and it just washes over you, and then you could use that. So use it to do something beautiful. Maybe even to say hi to that person. When I was a child, I asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions I asked is, if you happen to be thinking about someone that has passed on, and you have really good thoughts about them, does that help them? Yes. Yes. But you know what happens? We get too concerned about whether someone is thinking of us.
Yeah, because we're always about what's in it for me kind of thing, where we want to meet the ones that are thought of in a special way.
Yeah, there's a real good remedy for that. Something my teacher taught me. Give what you need the most. You give the good thoughts about someone, and then there'll be good thoughts all around.
That's great. Can human souls incarnate in
an
animal? Wow. You sure?
Absolutely.
So I can't come back as a little birdie next time?
No. Different kingdom. Sorry. You know how many times I've been asked that? So I recognize the pattern. Can a human soul be? No.
You're no fun. Let me get the question out.
Sorry. No. You're different kingdoms. Okay? If you do come back, as I said, did I say this last week?
Yeah.
If you do come back as a rat, you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Seriously. or bird or anything else. Listen, different kingdoms.
This question says, back to prior, what if the pet was being neglected in the dream, though it is very well taken care of in the physical realm?
Then that pet is, there's something going on with that pet you're not paying attention to.
In what way?
Well, maybe that pet is trying to represent some part of yourself that you're not taking care of.
Wow,
Well,
that's really
if you're talking about somebody who's, what, malnutrition, is that it?
neglected. If
Neglected.
if the animal's being neglected in a dream, but it was well taken care of in life.
Well, what do you call well taken care of? And then what do you call neglected?
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe there's a part of you that feels neglected. Something you're not addressing. And I would be more than willing to bet that that's the very thing. There's part of you that's neglected. Or else that animal is saying, look, you know, you're feeding me this crap and I really don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's great, you think you're taking care of me. You know, but other than that, it would have to do with you, yourself.
And adding to that question, it says not neglected by you, but by someone else.
Maybe bring up oh, I'm sorry. You said the animal was taken care of, right?
No, they said, what if the pet in the dream
Oh, I get it.
was being neglected by someone else, not you, though it was very well taken care of in the physical realm?
I still say that has to do with that person.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with you. Or maybe that person is that person who you dreamt about. Maybe listen. When you have a dream about a person, it doesn't mean it has anything to do with that person. Usually, it has to do with something that is in regards to you. Or maybe that animal is a representation of something that they're not paying attention to. But it does usually have to do with you personally, not them. You know, because remember, you can't go around judging people based upon what you had a dream about.
There was another question there. I don't know where it went. It was, it's gone. Anyway, so my question is with dreams. Is it true that when you have dreams, is there any symbolism to it? Can dreams just be a plain old dream about something you did, purging for the day, or is there really a lot of symbolism?
Well, it's like what you
signs
said.
and dreams?
Sometimes there is a purging for the day. We call it clearing. But 9 times out of 10, the dream does symbolize something. Science likes us to believe that it's just the brain's way of de-stressing itself or releasing something, which in many cases can, in fact, be true. But even then, there's usually a symbol in the dream. So remember, dreams are usually to help you fulfill something, help you to avoid something, help you to remember something or recall, or help you to clear something. Okay? So they always have a direction. They always have a definition. Now, if you have dreams about tornadoes on the table or, you know, pink elephants, then maybe the place you ate was not a great one. But usually a dream does have some significance.
So adding to that dream that the writer is asking about, it says the dog was chained to the side of the road with a sign attached to it addressed to the owner.
Addressed to the owner?
The dog was chained to the side of the road with a sign attached to it addressed to the owner.
Well, you said the dog was well taken care of, so it couldn't have been about the dog, could it? Maybe the dog had bore some significance or a symbol, and I still say it has to do with either the people or you. And I'm sorry you don't like my answer, but it's just the way that it is. You know, if the dog was addressed to these people, then maybe that has to do with the people and not necessarily the dog. Or maybe the people need to watch the dog a little more closely.
I remember the prior question there. It is. It says, do animals and trees have their own names, and how would you find out?
Ask them and then listen.
Really?
Yes.
So how would I ask my dog what his name is?
Pick him up and ask, what is your name? Because my last few dogs, they were quite out there and telling me. Like, I had another child before Ling, and I picked him up, and he looked right at me and said, my name's Moo.
That's
I said,
awesome.
seriously? He just looked and said,
So where do these names come from for the animals and the trees? From their parents, or just assigned to them? How does it work?
No, I don't think it works that way. I think it's just their own vibration. For instance, there's a ginkgo tree outside that is called Niela.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her, I said, I haven't even asked you your name. And she said, Niela.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to wait until I got it right. But she tells me how the weather goes, and she's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
It's amazing the stuff you can learn. If a human soul can't incarnate in an animal, how can you be a unicorn?
Whoever told you that a unicorn was an animal? There's a better question.
That's kind of deep.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain on that?
Well, they use the symbol of the unicorn, and people call it a mythical beast.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is the unicorn was a symbol of Christ. And whether it's very handsome, and the horse, which represents strength and power and nobility, and the horn, which represents magic and the dispelling of evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I can be a unicorn. And besides, in another dimension, you have no idea what I look like. Some people who've been into the astral realm that I had to go get, no. But a unicorn's not an animal. Nice try, though.
The next question says, are humans affected by sounds beyond their range of hearing? How do you protect yourself from that?
Identify with the sounds that you need to hear. In other words, give yourself a vibrational frequency that you can return to. Speak. Maybe sit and listen to some of the sounds that resonate with you on a positive wavelength, and then recreate them in any way, shape, or form that you can. Which is why I usually recommend to people, if you're going to follow any form of mysticism, it's a really good idea to at least learn to play one instrument. That way, you can always bring yourself back with a sound that is familiar to you, and then fortify yourself. So, that's one thing that you can do. Another thing is you can find a person like myself that understands vibrational frequency and have us do one up for you so you can always listen to it. Another thing is make some rules. No one enters your home with a foul vibration. If someone comes in, they say they want to do drugs, or they want to get drunk, or they want to cuss and spit all over the place, don't allow that in your home. Mm-hmm. Remember, your home is your domicile. It is your fortress. And your vibration will be protected if you protect it. Your home, I mean.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. What is an evil eye curse, and how can you protect yourself from one?
The evil eye is... the evil eye is not a type of curse. It's just something that's used to say that a person is cursed. Okay? Mm-hmm. Or that someone is going to throw a curse. They're giving a person the evil eye. What is it they call it nowadays, though? Oh, yeah, stink eye.
Oh, my goodness. I love that expression.
But the evil eye is a curse. There's protection against that. Protect yourself on every single level.
My daughter-in-law says that to my grandson. You give me the stinky eye. When he's giving her attitude.
And it's, for all intents and purposes, if it's really meant that way, evil. Mm-hmm. You're thinking evil thoughts at someone, and you're throwing them at that person, directing them at that person. Now, it is a good policy for everyone to say a little litany of protection. I now guard, protect, and shield myself against all forms of psychic attack.
So you don't necessarily have to set out to curse somebody. You could just be really upset in traffic and someone cuts you off and you send a lot of emotion towards that person you don't even know. Can that harm them if you do
Usually
something like that?
know that you're sending the emotion towards that person. It will harm you more than that person.
Well, yeah.
But if there are people that actually have some knowledge of magic
mm-hmm.
and projecting thoughts and then directing that energy, that is a curse. Okay?
So there has to be some knowledge in it. You can't
knowledge.
Inadvertently do it without realizing that that's what you're doing. Just because you're angry or in the spur of the moment.
But even then, you're still trying to. Person knows what. Look, if you have road rage and you're on, and someone cuts you off and you get mad at that person, you know exactly what you're doing, no matter what anyone says. Mm-hmm. I just lost control. No, you didn't. You directed the force exactly where you wanted it to go.
Right.
And although it be misdirected, it's still a conscious act. Now, those that have some knowledge do that. Curse people consciously. You need protection against it. There have been symbols, there have been litanies, there have been prayers, and all of them are effective once you know how to use them.
Now, what do you mean when you say it's more harmful for yourself than for the person you're sending
Because
it to.
whatever you direct at a person, you will get back.
Mm-hmm.
You will get back, and you will get it like bread that has been thrown on water. It'll come back to you full, and it will hurt you. Even though there are those people out there that think that they are impervious to the curses and the bad things that they do, it will come back, and it will come back bigger.
So you see these people that are constantly angry and they're like just angry at the whole world. So is that kind of like what they're doing? They're sending out so much negative energy. That's why things keep happening to them, and they don't even put the two together.
They'll never put it together. Because remember, a person who decides to be angry all the time thinks that nobody's angry at them. But they have to realize that, you go and call someone ugly, have you looked in the mirror? Seriously.
Right.
And there are lots of people that would try to challenge the knowledge of people that have knowledge. And, I never really try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I merely point out the truth about certain things. And it's really ironic that we, as human beings, always want to look out of one eye and not realize that these eyes are also receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're going to go and call someone ugly, oh, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really?
Now you said also about you can say litanies or prayers for protection. So let's say someone like myself doesn't really know that much, and someone is doing something evil or hexes or whatever. A simple prayer will protect me from that?
Well, it depends on what you call simple. Remember, a prayer is a prayer, and if you're doing it with earnestness and sincerity,
Well, yeah.
that prayer has power.
Would it have power or something like that?
Sure. You can't do it from fear. You have to calm yourself. One of the simplest things that I teach all of my students is this. I now exorcise from my mind all evil thought, all jealousy, suspicion, and hate, and I am filled with the pure light of divine love. That's simple.
That's cool.
And you know what? You say that, and you say it, and you say it, and you say it, and you know what? You'll reach this point where everything snaps, and you will be at peace. And you will be impervious to harm.
That is really nice. I like that. This other question says, how do you work with angels? How do you know which one to call on for help?
You call one, you get them all.
Really?
Yeah.
Kind of travel in packs?
Yeah, well, usually if there's any good, you only need one.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're all good. Therefore, you get one, you get them all.
Now, what in particular cases would you be calling angels to help you?
In any case,
Mm-hmm.
you're having a rough day. Just simply stop yourself and say, can you help me out?
So it doesn't necessarily have to be this life-altering, like there's some evil entity in your house. You can just simply, like you said, be having a bad day or feeling angry.
That brings about a wonderful point.
Mm-hmm.
How many out there, and all of you really ask yourself this, how many of you, I'm going to ask a question, how many of you talk to God when you're having a good time? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Just look and say, how are you doing?
Right.
Or, I just want to say thank you. I'm really, I don't know what else to say other than I'm okay, thank you. Or just to have a chat.
That doesn't have to do with a guest list.
That's
stuff.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That would mean that you would realize that you are speaking to a being that is paranormal. And that you would have to give up your fear of embarrassment, your fear that someone might see you talking to the wind.
Mm-hmm.
That someone might see you speaking to that angel that is standing right in front of you, that your eyes may not pick up, but your spirit does. All this talk about angels and souls, as if they're some foreign thing, as if, they will not come, they will not be there unless you're in trouble. Why can't they be there when you're not in trouble?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. If you can be someone's friend in good times and bad times, then you're really someone's friend. Don't just look to them when you're about to step into the valley of darkness. Speak to them when you're shining in the light. That way, they never leave you. And then, when you do look to the hills, your help is there waiting. Rather than to wonder, do my angels hear me? They're not your angels. If anything, you're their human.
Oh, that's crazy. I like that.
Just remember, most of you wouldn't know an angel if you were speaking to one. They come in human form, animal form, elemental form, even some bugs. Maybe that gust of wind that you just felt is an angel. Maybe that overwhelming sense of peace that you have is that touch of an angel. They don't always whisk by. They're not all female. They're not whisking by in long flowing hair all the time going, "God loves you." It doesn't. They come in all sizes and shapes, and you know what? The ones that are fighting for you, they're pretty tough looking. They have to be. Speak to them. Angels no exclusivity. God is not exclusive, and neither is God's angels.
That's very true.
They're always willing. Are you willing to speak to them?
That makes a lot of sense. Here's another one. It says, what if any does it mean to see a blue pulsating square when your eyes are closed?
You've been looking at the television too long?
The computer screen.
Now, that can mean other things. But remember, as a teacher, I have to give you every single option. Now, if you haven't been looking at something in particular, then that means that there may be an energy there if there's nothing physically wrong with you. Okay, so take that into consideration as well. And do some investigation. Remember, I'll give you some things, definitions of the color blue. Honor, honesty, feeling, emotions, changing emotions, the heart center, which is what we call the Jesus center, and also telepathy. So take all of that and see which one fits. And if there is an opportunity for you to actually do some transformative work, seeing that, then use it. There may be an entity there, but not everything means that there's an entity. Think about what it is that you're seeing. Contemplate it. Please don't try to just make it go away because you don't understand it. You know, just think about what you're doing. Calm yourself. Calm yourself. And then proceed with your investigation.
That's good advice. Is it true that God only has the power to hear us and doesn't have the power to see us?
I'm
Is
sorry,
that why
what?
we pray? I'm sorry.
What?
Is it true that God only has the power to hear us and doesn't have the power to see us? Is that why we pray?
You know what I'm going to say.
I actually
to that.
skipped a question because I wanted to get to that one.
I don't know where that philosophy came from. I really don't. I hope he can see us. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's not true. God is all-powerful. Do you know what all-powerful means? God does not have the power to hear us. Was he see us? Was he blind? Seriously? No, this other guy that got blinded. Okay? Wrong God. All-powerful means all-powerful. Not powerful in some aspects and then kind of powerful in the others.
And
All
then some,
powerful.
not so much, yeah.
God is God. Well, depending upon the name that you're calling him, there can be a myriad of names. God is what God is, and yes, God does have the power to see you. I have the power to see you.
We're actually almost out of time.
Oh, it's okay. I want to address this because someone's been reading the wrong books or listening to the wrong people. Listen, I can see you. You can see me. And if we're made in the image of God, then God can see you too.
Very true.
It's really simple. You pray as a matter of speaking to God. Someone put the word pray on it, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, prayer is communication with the Holy Spirit. It's just that simple. No philosophies. No made-up constructs. God is, was, and ever will be. And so is Goddess. And yes, they can see you. What was that last question you skipped?
Actually, we were out of time.
Okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say goodnight to all my homies. All of the children, you all know who you are. Okay? I see you all a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that I don't get to see, I'd like to say goodnight to you all too. You all know I love you. All of you that are in Seattle, in Texas, California, Maine, New Hampshire, New York, Florida, Massachusetts,
Philly?
Chicago, Philly,
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania, Hawaii, China, Africa, India, all of you. You know I love you, and I'm sorry we didn't get to all of the questions tonight, but I'm sure I will. I will see you all next week. Oh, by the way, since I'm doing this, we are raising funds for our epic movie Valkyr. If you go to Kickstarter, I think it is Kickstarter.com, you will find us there, and the name of the movie is Valkyr, and we need to raise $20,000 in order for us to get Kickstarter to help us. So if you can all go there and make a pledge, you don't have to pay it immediately. We have 25 days left. At the end of that 25-day period, the pledge will be expected to be fulfilled. However, we would appreciate your help. I figured it out. I only need 200 people to pledge $100, and that will work. And we'll be able to start the movie Valkyr the way that it's supposed to be started. And I look forward to seeing you all and talking to you all next week. Until then, I'm Ahurizi Deliza.
I'm Charlie Alejandro.
And this is Ask the Unicorn.
Have a great week.